Welcome to our October monthly member meeting. We have mics in the ceiling here, and
not mites.
Mites.
There might be mites up there.
And be thankful that we got this great spot. You know what I mean? Like we're very fortunate to have this spot for our meetings because it is central. You know, I've been in the club for 15 years now, and we've kind of moved all over the place for our meetings. And I personally think this is the best spot we've had for our meetings, you know, so far. So let's be grateful and just be mindful about cleaning up afterwards. And if you come from the B yard, right, which some of us come from the B yard because that's what we do, we work teams. Please change your shoes before coming into this place, right? Don't bring your B yard shoes into. So
I did change my shoes.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. I was in the chicken yard and the rabbit yard today.
Yeah, just be mindful that we're coming into a carpeted space. You know, that's it.
100 beekeepers were asked what they did in their spare time. 95 of you didn't understand the question, and 5 of you said, "What day is it?" There you go. That's true beekeeping.
Yeah, I mean, beekeeping is interesting, right? Because there's so many different goals, so many different highs. You know, someone's managing 2, someone's managing 200, someone's doing singles, someone's doing double, someone's doing queen excluders, knives, queen excluders. So never feel like your method should be put down by anybody, honestly.
Here's our agenda.
New members, my talk, installation, feeding, overwintering. So it's a lot of winter prep today. So I think and then newbies. Anyone new? Do you want to say hello? Please say hello.
I've been a member all year. This is my first meeting.
Awesome.
First year beekeeper. Name's Travis. Live up kind of by Ludwig's Corner area, and have 2 hives.
Anyone in Ludwig's Corner, raise your hand if you're close to Ludwig's Corner. There you go. There you go. They're your friends. There's your friend.
Okay.
You know, the nice thing about the bee club is, well, there's so many beekeepers in Chester County, right? I think there's 2,000, I think.
At least
2,000 beekeepers in Chester County, of which 500 are members of the CCBA. So chances are someone within a month, chances are you have 2 or 3 beekeepers. And I think it's good to know who they are, right? And be friendly with them. 5-ish minutes to fly high. I'm going to do it today.
well, but you've already been talking.
I get my 5 minutes of love.
Well, now George,
-10 would be impossible.
4-ish minutes.
We keep going. Those of you who've been here for a long time do know that I am the shortest winded president today, for sure.
He's not lying. Although Russ
Didn't talk a lot.
Oh, Russ, that's true. Russ was brief. These are our officers for 2025. As you probably have read in your email, the 2026 president is Mark. So Mark Metters will be our new lead come next year. And then Mark's responsibility is to fill all of these positions. So some of these positions probably will be staying for next year, and there probably will be some turnover. So if you're interested in serving a greater role within the CCBA, please talk to Mark. He will be the person that will be sort of assembling this. And this is a vital team, honestly. As you know, nothing of this club would happen without the people up on this screen. So they're important, and you probably shouldn't assume that somebody else will do it, because then nothing is done. Next. And I think, Mark, you plan on having a secretary, assistant treasurer, and a vice president. And then somebody's going to need to do Mark's job, because Mark can't do 2 jobs. So someone's going to need to continue on doing the digital work that Mark does, because I think that's important to make that available. So if anybody has that skill set,
I'll step up and do that.
So just so that you know, Chris McNaughton, who is the assistant treasurer, is going to move up into my current slot, VP of technology, and Howard's going to move down to the assistant treasurer, and Michelle Murphy is going to step in as the treasurer.
So Mark is already assembling his cabinet.
That part is pretty good, but we still need a second vice president, someone that will basically do what Donna's been doing this year, which has been, among other things, but the specific role is setting up the meeting, getting the speakers lined up, getting the program assembled, and then running the meeting. So that's the role that we really need to fill from the officer's standpoint for next year.
And the president's just the figurehead. I don't do any of the work to make these meetings happen. Donna does all the work.
And Donna and I can confirm that.
Mark is also, the president's also responsible for this. President's a hard job, honestly. You know, I mean, it's a lot of work to be president of the CCBA. You're 500 members and you have all these positions to fill. These positions are vital. You know, this is the program positions. So in the CCBA, I'm sure you guys heard this, everything runs through committee. If we offer, the only reason why we offer a program is because there's a committee behind the program that's getting offered. If there's no committee lead, there's no program. So these are very important. So if we want to continue to keep the club as like a fun place and doing cool things and things like that, Mark will need to fill all these roles. And I'm not sure how many of them will be open. I think one of the big ones that I know is going to be open is community outreach, right? So I think Damon is going to fill a different role within the club. So we will definitely need somebody to do that. And that's a very important piece of what we do, is all the things that we get invited to talk to and show up to and stuff like that. And we need somebody to sort of coordinate that effort, like take the request in, send the emails out to the club members, plead with people to sign up. And
we'll also need help. Monica will need help. She may have to step aside in the entertainment side. So if that's something that strikes your fancy, we would love that assistance. And then I know that Paul is always looking for people to join the grant committee to help out as we spend thousands of dollars a year giving out grants.
And we're trying to transition a little earlier this year, honestly. So because transitions are key. So usually the new president isn't named until a little bit later in the year, but we're trying to do it a little differently this year by naming them earlier, because the idea is come January, the new year starts and we want to be ready to go. So we're spending October, November, December in this transition period so that all the positions are filled come January 1st, you know. And yes, we're doing things differently than a lot of clubs are doing it, but I also think we're the most successful club and hopefully we'll continue to be that. So there's like 20, if you combine the officers and the leads, there's 20 positions, basically, key positions within the club to make the club run. And if you're interested in serving in any of them in any significant way, Mark's the person to talk to. So I always have a thank you slide because I realize that the CCBA is basically a volunteer organization, and anything that we do is basically done by by people volunteering their time and talents to make this stuff happen, and a lot happens. So I try not to leave anybody out, but I apologize if I've left you out at some point through the year, because that's not my goal. I know that's offensive, but this is what's been happening in the last month. You'll see a lot of community engagement happening. You know, the Unionville Community Fair, St. Francis, Bondsville Open House, Pecopson Founders Day, West Nacogdoches Community Day. Mark for his work with first graders. That's all community engagement, and very important because, you know, if you want your neighbor to think highly of you and your bees, right? So if your neighbor likes bees and is educated about bees, your life as a beekeeper is going to be easier. If you sell honey one day, you're going to sell more honey. You know, it's all good when we reach out to the community, and that's also money coming in. A lot of these community engagement events, we do them for free. We're not charging people to show up to the library or show up to the school or show up to the dentist office. Yes, Damon's done his dentist office visit on honeybees. But what happens afterwards, they get the QR code to make a donation. Sometimes they'll give $100 or $200 to the club, and that all adds up, and that allows us to do programs. So
I want a specific call out. Russ did 5 sessions.
raise your hand, Russ, so they know who you are.
I think he took 5 volunteer spots. He was actually there for 6, but thank you. You know, glad to do it.
You know, this is an opportunity. We try to ask if you can sell honey at these events. So if you're licensed to sell honey off your property, it's a great opportunity to sell $100, $200 worth of honey at some of these events too, right? So you show up, you do the education, but you also have a bunch of bottles of honey on the table if anybody wants. So it's a nice opportunity to make some money back on your beekeeping. I do try to make it. We do try to make it. We can't pay anybody, but I do try to put little, like, whenever possible, we try to. You understand what I'm saying? We try to get back a little bit. I'm spilling coffee. Next, no, not next. Website redesign. You will see the new website.
I think I saw it's live.
Some parts of it are live.
Some
parts.
Yeah, I just looked. I think it's live.
It's prettier. That's not live, but it's got a different heading. It's got different pages.
This is live. This slide.
Is it the new? I thought it was gonna look slightly different. Anyway, it's all good. So you're gonna see a new website. Hopefully easier to navigate, easier to find what's going on. So that's all done. It's cleaner looking. It's still the Club Express platform, so it's still got the quirkiness of that platform. But we in full transparency, we invested $6,000 in the website redesign this year, using professionals to sort of clean this up and make it better, which is cheap in the big picture of things, right? You know, website design can be tens of thousands of dollars to do. Luckily, Donna knew somebody who did it at a really good rate. And then we have April, who is a club member. She's not here today, but she's sort of is going to be the point person for the ongoing website maintenance. So it's nice to sort of have that done, and hopefully that will be appreciated for the members.
Can I interrupt you for 1
Absolutely.
second? Somebody in the audience asked about joining the Women's Bee group or any committee for that matter. So we just want to show you, if you log in and go to the members menu and find committees, it'll pull up all of our committees. And I think the Women's Bee group's at the bottom. You basically just,
I think there's a way to join.
I think if you go in, then it's up top, send me an email because you're already logged in. If he wasn't, if
Or a member.
if he wasn't a member, it would say sign up or something like that, right, Carissa?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
something
it's
about identity.
simple.
Add my name. Hopefully, this has been a wise investment on our part to redo the website. We do have an Explore post now. The ask went out a couple times for adult volunteers to get involved in that. We have 11 club members we actually have more club members than teens right now, so who are working on that, but we did get 11 people from the club who expressed interest in helping out with that program. So it's not a CCBA program, it's a scout program, but we collectively, us and the scouts, have a youth program for teens for beekeeping, which took a while to get to, but if you know any teens and there's plenty of teens that are interested in beekeeping. So we had an open house last month for teens, right? And we had this teen come, he was from Delaware County. He was a sophomore in high school, out of Furt School. And he had been he's been doing research on bees. I was like, okay, this is cute, right? High schooler doing research on bees. And then he started talking. I was like, holy shit. And I did research for my career. So I did a little bit about scientific research and methodology and statistics and all that. And every question I asked him, he nailed. He says, I do international competitions on my research. I was like, holy cow. I was like, okay, you're serious. And his research, you want to hear about his research? Very briefly, it's very cool. He's doing research where he is priming bees for pollination. So what he's doing with a collaborator or two, not on his own, but what he's doing is he's taking colonies, and in the sugar syrup, he is feeding them sugar syrup plus sort of compounds that are found, like if you're doing blueberry pollination, he's giving the syrup compounds in blueberries and priming that syrup and having the bees eat that syrup for 2 days before they get moved on to pollination. And that those bees that are primed with these chemicals in the sugar syrup are better pollinators based on how much of that blueberry pollen, whatever pollen's coming back into the hive. So that's his research. And he's having bees somehow get hooked up to this machine where they're blowing scent on the bees, like these compounds on the bees, and they're watching the proboscis of the bees and how much it comes out and how stimulatory those scents are to the bees' feeding response. I was like, dude, the president, that was before Mark was named president. I was like, I don't know, you can't be a member, but maybe you can be president of the club at 60.
Have to wait a couple of years, but yeah.
So humble though. I mean, and I know, and he's going to come back, and he's really cool, and he wants to suck up anything bee related because he's going to be an environmental engineer when he goes off to college at Stanford somewhere. But there are other kids like that out there, right? That science is their thing, or that bees are their thing, and we just want to make sure people are aware that this opportunity exists, right? We have, I think we have 4 or 5 kids so far, but we need more kids because we have more adults than kids. Anyway, Women's Bee Group for the monthly speaker series. I see another talk coming up. They've done a great job this year of sort of bringing in the people that are making the miticides. That's been their focus. We brought in the people that make Formic, the people that make Apogard, the people that make Viroxan. I mean, these are the companies that are making this stuff. I should have said stuff that we are using. I mean, that's amazing. No other club is doing that, honestly. So your access, and those are all recorded, and Mark has them up somewhere. Carissa for volunteering to run next year's conference.
Show of hands. I mean, it's a small group, but just a show of hands, like we're talking about the conference and planning it as we do this time of year. Just a show of hands, would raise your hand if you would attend an in-person conference only in person. It would be March. Okay, I'm gonna send an email out to the whole club to just yes or no. Because last year we tossed around the idea, we didn't have a lead, so we tossed around the idea of doing like both in person and on Zoom, but like at separate parts of the day. But then that, we just didn't have anybody to lead it. But I think this year I was kind of inspired with all the in-person conferences that I went to this past summer. So I prefer to do an in-person, but that's just my preference. So I was just gonna send an email out to the club. Not a survey, just respond to me, say yes or no. Would you attend in person? And I wouldn't hold you to it if you don't.
Westchester.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, look.
So yeah, somewhere, it would be somewhere in Westchester. So I just wanted to kind of gauge if people were interested in an in-person.
And George should be available to help now that he's not president.
That's true, that is true.
So the history, some of you have been around for a long time, some of you have not. The history of CCBA, we started doing a in-person conference in 1980. And we ran an in-person conference for basically 35 years, every year. And then with COVID came, we went to virtual. And so now it's like, what do we do now that clearly COVID's done? Do we start a very successful virtual conference? Like, do we do a virtual conference? Do we do a Zoom conference? Or is there no interest in doing any conference, honestly? I hate to say that, but, so the membership has to speak, right? The membership has to speak to what we want, right? So Chris is going to send out a survey, which 20 or 30% of people, unfortunately, are only going to respond to, but please respond and let us know, because
I was, because
not a survey, a question.
Yeah, because most people don't find it like cumbersome to like click on a link and survey. So if you just respond to the email, my email, and just say yes or no, and I won't hold you to it. If you say yes and then you don't show up, that's fine. But I'm just trying to gauge interest.
Right. So is it worth restarting an in-person conference? Right. It was terrific. It was the standard when we did it. Clearly was the standard when we did it. And then Zoom was the standard, and we did that awesome. Now it's like, okay, now what do we do? Like, do we do Zoom? Do we do in person? What do we do? And who's going to show up to it, honestly? Because if no one's going to show up to it, then I hate to be negative, but that's the reality of it, right? Like, anyway. So thank you, Carissa. That is one of the hardest jobs of the year to do, is that conference coordination. So thank you, Carissa. Next. What am I doing with my bees? So
Oh my God, we didn't even start this yet. Oh my God, you're already at 17.
bees, food, disease. That's what you need to inspect. What you need to do. One of those things. Move on. I'm going to show you how fast I can go. None of that was about me. That was all about club. Next. Must do things to consider. October management considerations. I'm going to get more to this when I talk about winterizing. You should not have a queen excluder on your hive in the winter, right? So for those of you who run queen excluders, if they're still on your hive, time to take them off, or at least move them to the top of the stack where they're not in between the boxes. It's a simple thing to do. Sometimes we're lazy and we forget. That's a bad one to forget, because what happens is the bees move up in the winter, right? Because that's where the heat is, that's where the food is. And if the queen can't move up, as the bees move up, the queen basically dies, and then you come out of winter queenless, which is not a good situation, right? So just take your queen excluders off. For those of you who run singles like me, it's something that you don't have to think about. Another good reason to run singles, because you don't have to remember to take your queen excluders off because you're running in one box. But most of us run in more than one box for the winter, so take your queen excluder off. This is the most important thing in my mind, is your top insulation. If your hive does not have top insulation, the thicker the better on your hive. This is something that you want to do. There is no reason to overwinter without top insulation. You can put it on now. I honestly run top insulation year round now. So all my hives have top insulation, 365 on them. I don't see any downside of doing it. And and it's one less thing I have to remember, my insulation. So top insulation and mouse guards should be no wider than 3/8 of an inch. especially in singles, you don't have to worry about because the bees are basically down in the single and the mice aren't getting in. But you know, bees move up in the winter. So if you're at bottom, if you have 2 boxes on and the bees move up and you don't have mouse guards on, you know where the mice are going? Into the bottom box, right? So they're going to come in because that's warmer than what's outside. Mark's going to talk Mark's going to talk about fondant and feeding. You should not. Fondant is an emergency feed. We're going to have fondant available hopefully at the November meeting. So you'll see an email with the ability to purchase fondant and then pick it up probably at the November meeting. I'm not sure if it'll be the November meeting or the holiday party. I'm not 100% sure yet. It requires some effort on my part to figure that out. But we will have fondant available for the club members. So you will have fondant for if you want to purchase for your hives as an emergency feed. No hive right now should need emergency feed. You know, if your hive is so light that they need fondant, you better in the next 2 weeks get some syrup on your hive, you know, so that they have some food going into winter. Fondant is really an emergency feed situation. And then some people wrap. I don't wrap, but some people will circle their hives with black art paper, roofing paper, or circle their hives with foam board insulation. You can do it. You know, I don't think it makes a huge difference in survivability or in food consumption. But if you circle your hives in insulation or roofing paper, they will consume less sugar through the winter. And maybe they'll be a little bit less stressed than if you leave just wood along the sides. Or you can go, anyway, next. See, I'm done.
Yeah.
I will be back.
I have a question.
Yes.
Or maybe just an observation. I'm curious what your perspective is on it. I put insulation that looks similar to that inside my outer cover, and I heard this like loud noise outside my hive. And when I went in, they had eaten holes. I don't know if they were from the inside out or bees trying to get into the hive. These holes dug into the insulation. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to take this off until they're not actively out because this seems like a waste of money.
I generally put so during the season, ideally insulation is built into your outer cover so the bees don't get an ability to chew this because the bees will chew this. So that chomping and feed eating through the insulation. I'm not sure why they're doing that, but that's what they'll do. Anyone know why the bees chew insulation? Do you know why they chew insulation? No, but they will. So sometimes I'll put a piece of I'll put some duct tape right over where the hole of the inner cover is. So this sits on the inner cover, and the center of this has black duct tape on it, and I think that limits their desire to get up through that hole and start chewing. Because I think they start chewing at the hole, and then once they start chewing bigger. But I assume most of the chewing is right here.
Hair box on the top of the hive. Chewed the 2 little holes on the side and the middle
To get in.
well, that's why I wasn't sure if bees were trying to get in. So then I usually just strap my hive, so then I just put heavy rocks on top because I was like, well, maybe if there's because the insulation, not flat like a piece of wood. So I was thinking that maybe it was just
Chewing that way.
enough air coming in that bees from the outside. I opened up one of my hives last week and I couldn't even keep it open for more than a few minutes. The bees from the hives next to it were like starting to come and rob the hive open. I just like closed it up. So they're like very aggressive on each other right now. I couldn't tell if it was bees from the outside trying to get in or inside from getting out, but putting an inner cover on top of the feeder and then insulation did stop it.
The other thing I sometimes do with my insulation is just if I just put the duct tape around I don't know if it makes a difference, but you could wrap it in duct tape and then you put a duct tape over where the hole is on the inner cover, and that may eliminate some of the chewing that's going on.
You'll look at ants that move in.
Yeah, but ultimately, outer cover, if you're running the telescoping covers, honestly, outer cover should have insulation. I don't see why I'm sure somebody is making an insulated outer telescoping cover. Like, to me, I think that would be worth the money, honestly.
I actually bought 2 of them because it seemed cheaper. If they're going to chew through that and it's going to get destroyed, you have to buy one every single year. It's actually cheaper to spend $30 on an insulated outer cover that'll last you like the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So I tried 2 of them.
Do you like the one you bought?
I bought two different ones, one from Be Smart. I think they're both from Dayland.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually, I don't know, I mean, they're like an outer cover.
Outer cover with insulation and yeah.
Supposedly, moisture goes there, whatever, but they, you definitely have to put like bricks or something on top, because those things weigh like nothing. It's not like having a wood outer cover, those things are heavy,
Because they're plastic.
but they're really thick. The one from Be Smart is like really thick.
However, interestingly, I run 100% styrofoam beehives. Bees don't chew on them.
I do have one of those hives and they don't chew. They were chewing, to the extent I could hear it standing outside the
I
hive.
don't know why they all chew this.
They're all made from the same poly. I think it's some polyethylene but yeah,
There's an answer, right?
it must be a different type of styrofoam or the density level, but the 100% styrofoam hives.
Share what that is.
Oil foam,
Oil foam.
so they can't chew through it. I don't do the outside edges, so
Wrap the edges.
the ants don't know.
Water made that. It's like a tape that you put. Yeah, it's for.
Pass it around, show and tell. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
So as everybody knows, not the best beekeeper. I had a lot of, my first 2-3 years were so successful. I was like, beekeeping is simple, man. This is great. There are no problems. I don't know what everybody complains about.
The golden years.
And then I hit year 4, 5, 6, and it's like, scratch my head. Do I really want to keep doing this? So I'm going to tell you what I did my first year, because my first couple of years were great. The first year the club sold these bee cozies. The first year you were president would have been. And I bought one. I only had one hive. And I didn't really know, I didn't come to meetings back then. I didn't know anything about top insulation until a year or two later when I started getting involved with the club. I never did top insulation. I only did a cozy around the hive. So the following year, I'm always looking to save money. And I'm like, how do I do this without buying a bee cozy? So I went to the Home Depot and I got a roll of black, which is what they say draws some heat in. And I got a roll of foam, the outside of my hive. I also started doing
And we get 40 degrees and they just stay inside and then the flowers bloom and they go out and they consume the least amount, right? And they do that by going into torpor, right? So they do that by basically slowing their metabolism, building the CO2 levels in the hive. Don't let the CO2 out the top ventilation. Keep the CO2 in the hive because CO2 is good, right? CO2 in the winter is a good thing because it's slow in metabolism. And then so your food consumption is, they don't need to move anywhere. They have to heat a small box. So their food consumption is next to little, right? Until the flowers bloom, then they wake up and they fly. But what happens in the winter with the environment? The temperature gets up to 60 degrees. They wake up, they go fly. Well, that's wasted energy. Or we get a cold stretch where it's like 0 degrees, and then they have to consume more. But anyway, you want your bees just to sit you want your bees in one spot, not moving in torpor all winter at 40 degrees. That's ideal. That's when they're going to consume the least amount of food. But the multiple boxes have it, right? So that's the way people have overwintered in this area for a long period of time, and it's successful. And if you overwinter in a double with top ventilation, you're going to be successful because we all were. The single no ventilation is sort of the newer, I shouldn't say smarter, the newer way to do it. What do you think, Paul?
Oh, I was going to say a while back that gave a presentation, I don't know, within the last couple of years, where a guy actually tested that assumption that you didn't need heat, or you didn't need insulation on the top, that the heat was the same in the hive. Well, what this guy did was put thermistors all throughout the hive. And there's a huge heat gradient. It's hottest at the top, it's coldest at the bottom. Yeah. And if you put insulation on, wow, you greatly expand that heat gradient. So the top box is really, and it goes further down. So that's why we don't. And then if you opened up a ventilation at the top, you got like a jet kind of effect. Came roaring in from the bottom and roaring out the top. So now you had a breeze in there, cooling everything off. So it was interesting stuff.
It used to be interesting because you could tell if your hive was alive in the winter by going over to the top ventilation, just putting your hand there. I was like, okay, that's warm. That hive's alive. Oh, that's cold. That hive's dead. You know. So, but it was basically from that effect of just that jet of hot air coming out the top of the hive. But it worked, right?
Yeah, I overwintered for years with ventilation.
Do you still do ventilation?
I shut everything up. So
Why?
to not get that jet engine effect. Cooling.
Are you using
Warm.
solids or screen bottoms?
Big bottom.
Screen bottom with just that thing in there is enough, huh?
Yeah, that's enough.
See, I just always feel like that's just too cold.
Mm.
But I'm struggling right now
You don't
because I've got
say
hive
you run
beagles.
doubles.
I do.
Yeah.
And I have a slatted rack down there and a low super. So they eat the low super honey and then they move up boxes.
So your bees are up top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Away from that cold bottom.
Yeah.
But with singles, it's hard to get the bees away from that cold bottom.
Got a question.
Anyway.
Just a quick, just to make sure I'm kind of wrapping my head around top of the hive over winter. So you put a shim, you said, then it would be your inner cover, then your insulation, and you're not worried about any kind of moisture barrier or anything.
No.
And then
Now, with that said, people run shims and put stuff in their shims for moisture, right? So people will put a shim and then put the wool or the blankets or the cedar shavings or the whatever into that. Like they'll do what Donna did. They'll have a shim and they'll have the screen on the bottom of the shim. In that space, they'll put in
to trap moisture.
the trap moisture.
But if you're not trapping it, in theory, and especially if the outside is insulated, then the moisture will fall.
Yeah, if your insulation is less on the outside walls than on the top wall, then the moisture will go to the outside. Where does your moisture go in the poly hives? To the bottom or to the side walls or?
I don't know. I overwinter in 3 frame, 6 frame, and 10 frame hives, and they all do just fine.
I just want to go on the record and say I've never heard him say I don't know.
Let's fact check this a little bit, okay? You were close. Three's not as good as 6.
6 is my best.
Correct.
6 does better than 10.
I think.
I don't.
Chance?
Maybe B to space ratio.
Uh-huh.
3 is probably 30 to 40%. 6 frames probably 80 to 90%, and 10 frames probably 70 to 80%.
Heat rises.
Yeah, I think the less space, the more torpor, the more CO2 buildup, smaller space, smaller cavity, B to space ratio, and then they do great.
CO2 is a heavy gas. It comes out the bottom. So I don't know how much it actually builds.
Don't know.
Yeah.
These discussions are
Well over.
incredibly,
That's right.
yeah, I mean,
Stimulated.
it's stimulating its way. But I mean, people have written their PhD dissertations on just that topic. And so it's incredible.
So I think I'm missing something here. So a SIP frame, what would you do with the extra space? Or anything?
No, it's a 6-frame box.
Oh, I didn't know
Yes.
they made that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I run polystyrene. Everything in my hive is styrofoam.
Oh, okay.
Whether it be a 3 frame, 6 frame, or a 10 frame.
Okay.
But if you have a 10 frame hive that only has 3 frames of bees in it, put a follower board and put an insulation board on the end of that follower board. Make your 10 frame into a 6 frame. You know what I mean? Ed does 6 frames. I do 5 frame single deeps. We've done 5 frame single deeps out at the apiary yard. 90% overwintering survival for years doing 5 frame single deeps out there. So you
anytime
can
that
overwinter
they're
in
empty
smaller.
frames.
I'm not sure you can do it in 3, but you can definitely do it in 5 and 6 and 10 or 8 or double, right? I mean, but if you only have a few frames of bees in your box, it's always good to have bee coverage. Even now in the winter, like cover 70 to 80% of the frames. If you only have like 2 or 3 frames of bees, put it into a smaller box or put your follower board on there and scrunch them
Never
down.
asked 2 beekeepers.
Sorry, I don't mean to.
George, there's a question over here.
to be difficult. Yes.
When you say 5 frames, you're talking about just 5 frames in your box. And the rest of it is blank?
No.
The box is a size box.
Box.
It only fits 5.
But you could put styrofoam on the edges
Oh,
of a small, to lessen the
Or you
box.
put the styrofoam on the outside. If it's a 5-frame box, you could styrofoam the outside. Or you could do a 10-frame box and fill it with styrofoam on the inside.
Do this,
Do that.
You know, if you have a 10-frame box, right now,
I like.
that's,
right, if you have a 10-frame box and your bead coverage is only 2 or 3 frames, it's gonna struggle because it's too much space. So you can either take that and put it into a 5-frame box or a 6-frame box, or you can take a follower board, stick it in the middle of that, right, and make that box only half the size by the use of a follower board. And a follower board is basically a wall. It's basically a wall that you can move within a box. So it basically makes the box smaller.
that's the insulation board that you're talking about.
It would be a wooden board, and then you would put insulation on the side.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, George.
That was Donna, not me. I still
Thank you,
come out
Donna.
after.
And also,
And George.
that stuff that blankets.
Keep asking questions.
What is that made out of?
Which one? The blanket stuff?
Is that wool you said?
It's a bubble wrap, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, this.
The fabric.
Well,
So a couple auctions ago, I picked up a lot of like a woolen blanket, cut them down, and yeah.
yeah, I think people use wool. I think wool absorbs more moisture than cotton.
There is a thought that you don't want to absorb that water. You want that water to run down the sides, the insides of the side of the hive body, because then they can go get the water and use it. They don't have to go out to the stream when it's really cold out, and they may not make it out of that black water. So they're reusing that water internally. So there's that. All right, I'm going to talk about feeding. You need to feed bees. You know, how much honey do you have in your hive, and finding how large is the hive. You know, and a larger hive needs more food, and a heavy hive has more food, and a light hive shockingly has less food. And as we've already talked about, you weigh your hives, and whether that's just pick it up and heft it, or you use a scale. So how many of you run more than 3 hives? I show of hands. More than 3 hives? Okay. So those of you run more than 3 hives. Come on. If you run 2 hives, I guarantee you'll go out, you'll weigh this one. Oh yeah, that one's heavy, and the next one's light. By the time you go back and check it again, you will forget which one was light and which one was heavy. I guarantee it. At least that's happened to me. So you want to track this stuff some way or another. Whether you put an H on the back of a hive, or use your Hive Tracks app, or you have a notebook, write it down whether it's heavy or light. Now, heavy and light to you today might mean something different than when you cricked your neck and you went out and everything's heavy. Anything over 2 pounds is heavy to you because your neck hurts. And so lifting causes that pain. So I think a fishing scale or some kind of a scale is not a bad way to do things. You simply heft that in, you look at the scale and go, okay, that sucker's 27 pounds or 43 pounds or whatever, and write it down in your notepad. Write it on the back of the hive. Clean marking pen, by the way, work really well for making hive notes on back of hives. Any of the hives in the club that I've been around, you'll see there's a date and then there are hive notes. That's just how I do it. And I also put it in my online app because there are times when I didn't do it on one, but I did it in the other, and then I can't go back cross-portaling. All right. When the hive needs to add weight is when you are feeding it, right? Yeah, I'm going to feed it anyway. And if I go into a hive and they haven't taken any sugar or syrup, that tells me that they are fine. They don't need it. They don't care. Or
They're dead.
you're dead. Or I forgot to pop the holes in the bottom of the feeder so that they can access to the syrup.
Speaking from experience.
Speaking from experience, because I use primarily sour cream tubs. You know, the 3-pound tubs of sour cream, you fill them up, you pop the 3 holes in it, you turn it over, and just as a word of warning, this is also from experience, use that crooked end of your hive tool to pop the bottom, which is now the top, which is now the bottom. The lid, you want to pull it up off of the little frames you got it standing on, because they'll propolize it, and you just grab the bottom, which is now the top, you lift it, and it's half full. All that syrup is just running down into your hive. Not cool. So you got to lift it from the lid to get the thing up to check it. And sometimes you'll lift it and it's empty. In fact, a lot of the hives I've been feeding recently, I lift them and they're empty. I've also used and we'll go through the various ones.
Can I make a quick comment? If anybody
Please.
needs the big plastic containers, I eat a lot of cottage cheese and have them, so I'm happy to bring them to the next meeting if anybody.
And by the way, Carissa is probably just shaking because we're using these plastic containers. But I think it's better to use the plastic containers that we're going to throw into the garbage.
Anyway, yeah.
Rather use them for something,
Right.
rather than just throwing away. So at least we get a little bit more use out of them.
Use reuse.
Reuse,
So
reuse, recycle, it's all good. When you've got solid feed, or what you're going to use solid feed when the temperature is below 50, and that's like the high today is going to be in the 60s or maybe 70s. Last night it was down at 42 degrees in my house, so they were kind of clustering up. Should I take the liquid feed off? It's still okay because the daytime temperature is going up. They're flying. They were flying when I was out feeding the chickens and the rabbits this morning. They were flying at 7:30 in the morning, and so you're fine. But when it gets down and stays consistently below 50, get the liquid feed off. Much more important to get the liquid feed off if it's in the hive body, and I'll show you that here in a couple minutes. Don't leave the feeding shim on in the spring. You'll notice there that's honeycomb. So the feeding shim was left on, and they filled it out, and the queen was the very top of the hive in that mess. And actually, Janet said, that's the queen right there. And we lifted the queen out. This is out at the Cheslin yard. Lifted that queen out, marked her, put her back in the bottom, and then it took us probably 45 minutes to cut all that comb off, hang it in frames with rubber bands to clean it all up. It's a mess.
If that comb has early honey or nectar in it, you can use it for chunk honey. So
you can, except
that, put it in your bottle and fill it with honey and charge more. Honey. So
in this case,
a little bit of extra comb.
it was all over. There was a lot of honey, a lot of nectar, but there was a lot of eggs and a lot of brood. So she had been up there for a while. So it's like this was just a mess. It was a medium box, cutting all that stuff out. Not a lot of fun. So don't forget to take your shims off. All right, so the homemade liquid feeders. Yeah, there you go. There's a sour cream container right there. You've got the mason jars that you can use. You know, up there at the top, down in the center, middle. Those are the entrance feeders that you should never use at an entrance. But you could put entrance feeders on the top of your hive and put a shim or a box around it and then cover it, and you can feed that way. Never use the entrance feeders in the front of the hive. Why? Because it creates a robbing, the opportunity. Thank you. Yeah. So you've got this wonderful syrup sitting in the front of the hive, and the bees from outside are going, "Oh, it's right here." So the defenders in that hive are overwhelmed. They can't put enough guards out to protect their source of syrup, and then all these bees are robbing all that out. Once it's empty, they go, ooh, I smell more honey in there. And
You get
now,
away with it early in the season when the nectar's out there, but now if you do that, you're basically inviting the hive to get robbed out.
What if you give it to everybody?
You know what else around you?
yeah, you've got hives, every hive within 2 miles.
And then you always have one hive that's greedy, Paul, one that.
The wasps are right now looking for liquid feed right now as well. So other bees are not the only invasive pest that you have to worry about. So I would worry about the wasp and the hornets as well.
Yeah, definitely, Chris.
I may have missed this and I apologize, but did you go over why you should feed or the circumstances in which you should feed?
I didn't.
Like,
Why wouldn't you feed your bees? Well, I am of the opinion that you can feed your bees, and if they don't want it, they won't take it. And so you come back out one hive that hasn't taken any feed whatsoever. So I'm moving that container. Oh yeah, not only are they alive, they're busy. I mean, but it's a heavy hive. They've got all the resources they need. So I've taken that feed, moved it to the hive next to it. And I'm not feeding them anymore. And I'll come back in, I'll throw one little container in there. And by the way, a yogurt container, a small yogurt container is a good way to use a limited amount, pop the holes in it, put it in the top, and that can be your little test case on a hive that's not taking in honey or taking in sugar. It's like, okay, they still haven't taken any, they're not hungry. You come back one day and it's empty. Okay, they're taken, then maybe you want to feed them again. Again, we're coming to the end of liquid feed time. So, this talk should have been done. This part of the discussion should have been done. So if your hives are light, you want to feed. If your hives are heavy, you can give them a little bit of feed and see if they take it. If they don't, so did I answer the question?
yeah, I guess, this time of year, usually like my bees, if I, have honey on my car or my hand, they're like swarming. They're like, so I guess I don't understand. It's not like for you to explain to me because bees, I don't know bees how they think, but if they're so desperate for resources that they're like slurping up everything around, why wouldn't they feed? Like my hives have a ton of honey in all of them, but I'm pretty sure if I put feed in there, they are gonna suck it dry. So it's like, when I was a first year beekeeper, it wasn't, and maybe I missed it, but it wasn't explained to me. Like I had plenty of honey in my hives to overwinter, but it was, everybody kept saying, you gotta feed, you gotta feed, you gotta feed. And so I was feeding, and my bees were going like sucking that sugar syrup down. And I ended up having to put another super on. It was like crazy.
Yeah.
And then it was explained to me like, oh, well, if you have plenty of honey in your hives over winter, then you don't really need to feed. And anyway, I had a lot of sugar and honey in my hives that first year.
Absolutely.
So that's why I ask. It's like, it's.
I tend to feed until they stop taking.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I don't know if all the cells are filled. Do they just stop taking it? I don't know. I never reached that stage.
I think what some of them are doing, they're pulling that nectar and they're using it immediately. But that's kind of my thought. But that does kind of fall in line with what he's supposed to do. But again, they don't read the same books.
It's an observation that George and I made last year. From just staring at several of my hives. Some hives were extremely active. Some hives were just clustering on the front of my hive, and it was clear that the ones that were clustering were extremely heavy, full. There was really no more work for them to do. However, if you put an empty super on, then they become active again. So there is that saturation level where the hive can no longer take anymore, and the bees, I guess they either recognize that or something of that nature that if there is space, they will want to fill it. But if there isn't, then possibly they're going to stop foraging altogether.
And somehow they know that honey dome, and when that honey dome is set up and everything below that honey dome is enough, they sort of shut off. And when you take that honey dome away and throw feed up or ats in the forage or throw feed on it, then they start waking up again.
And that is the observation that we
arrived at it separately.
Well, and I heard that, so for those that don't know what a honey dome is, when you look at a frame, pretend this is a frame, it's not a frame, but pretend it is. If you have honey, capped honey all the way across the tops and sides of the frame, that's a honey dome. And so I've got a box above it. They won't go up there and do anything with it. So I had a hive this year that had a honey dome on it. All the frames in that middle box were completely capped out across the tops, and there was nothing going on in the super. So I pulled those frames. I moved a couple of them up. I pulled some of them just to extract, and boy, they went right back to work. They were all up in the super, and that happened on a couple of the hives. And then I had one I went back into like 2 weeks later, and they'd honey dome that same middle super again.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Yes.
How big are the holes in your feed?
I use a small nail. So tiny. You could use a needle.
Okay.
Yeah, just enough that they can it'll ooze out. You can use a larger hole because the vacuum will hold it in place. As soon as you turn it over, it'll bunch will squirt out and then it'll stop. If the hole's big enough, they can get their proboscis in it. Then they're going to actually suck it direct out. If it just has to ooze out, then it takes a little longer. So slightly larger, I think, is better. But if you get it too big, now it's just all over the place. All right. And then again, plastic bag. Reuse. Don't get a new plastic bag. Use an old plastic bag. Yeah, because then we reuse, recycle. So you fill up that plastic bag and you take a razor and just or a pin and just pop a couple of holes in it. Come back in a week and it'll be flat. They will suck that thing dry.
How do you refill a plastic bag that has holes in it?
Well, you can actually, because you put it in a bucket, you pour the syrup into the plastic bag, and then you turn it on its side, the hole's up. You get a little bit of oozing, but you can reuse it.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's messy.
That's where my head was going on looking at.
Yeah, but no, if you're reusing the plastic bag, is you've got a plastic bag that you've already used in the house that has no holes in it.
Oh, okay.
Fill that
I
out,
misunderstood.
take it out. Yeah,
That's my problem.
yeah, because I wouldn't use a razor cut, because I've actually done this, taking a plastic bag and just taking a razor and just light cut all the way across it. And then just on 2-to-1 syrup, it won't just go all over the place. It'll stay right there, and the bees will come just suck it clean. So again, some homemade stuff. You don't have to go out and buy, the special, $20 feeders. You can, or $40 feeders, but you can go out and buy the commercial liquid feeders. So all different kinds. You've got the saucer that has a little cup that the bees can get in. They go up through the middle, they come down, and they suck up all the water or all the syrup, and off they go, and they're happy. When you use those, I've got a couple of them. I think I've got one out here. You fill it up, and you come back in a few days, and you fill it up again. Be careful, because the bees may have gotten through, and now they're all in the saucer, and you're just dumping the water, and you're going to have to get the bees out, or they'll drown. And then if you got bee bodies in your syrup, then it can cause the syrup to get a little nasty, unusable. The one with the red arrow in it, you'll notice there's some light colored stuff along that screen. That's called caulk. And so when you buy that particular one, you'll want to caulk where the screen meets the edge of the feeder. And you want to do that because bees will get into the feeder. And the first year I used one, I came in a couple of days later, opened it up, and I looked in, and this feeder had a layer of about an inch of dead bees all up in the syrup. And it's like, what the heck? Did I have an entrance on the top of it? I did not. They were coming through the holes on the side and drowning in the syrup. So you want to kind of minimize that.
Sometimes I put a foam board on top of that,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
and then the powder cover.
And then the outer cover, yeah. throw a foam board on it. Yeah, exactly. And then just different varieties of the same kinds of ideas. George and I were talking about doing a club project where we build some of these top feeders that you see that has the floating slats.
I have that one, it's awesome.
Yeah. Or think about maybe do it as a club project where you come in and we can build them, and you've got these.
There's no really great top feeders for newts where you can put like 2 gallons of syrup. They don't exist.
They just don't. Yeah.
Krista, do those ever get saturated and the wood sinks? No,
I mean, it's nice because it, you know, as the syrup goes down the wood.
it goes with it, yeah.
I've never had dead bees.
And other commercial feeders, you'll see the in-frame feeders. The good news about the in-frame feeder, you always put them on the left or on the right. And then when you take that top box, you just move it over about that far. You can fill them up without having to take the whole box off. You scoot it over, fill them up, and off you go. The bad news is you're having to pull frames out to put this feeder in place. You may forget it's there and you leave it in over the winter. If it's full of liquid, that's really bad because it becomes a cold soak. And now you've got all of this cold stuff in your hive, which you don't want to have done. You'll also always find dead bees down in these ladders. The holes and the ladder on the right side here, that is so the bees climb down, suck up the water or suck up the syrup, and then climb back out without drowning. They're thinning the herd. The stupid ones fall in, but as you refill it, you want to pull that ladder out, dump the dead bees out, put the ladder back in, because you've got dead bodies. Bees will eventually go, that's just nasty and we're not going to mess with it. Again, there's an example of a front feeder it hasn't completely started being robbed out yet, but it's well on the way of getting robbed out. You might stay away from those. All right. Solid feeding. So this is the stuff that you're going to start doing here shortly. If you need to feed, you want to go to solid feeding. So there's the candy board. By the way, if you're going to make candy board, make sure you use cane sugar. If it doesn't say cane sugar, don't use it because it's probably beet sugar, and beet sugar has to be tempered up to a much higher temperature before it will set up, if it ever set. I've never had the beet sugar set up. So you want to use cane sugar.
Yeah, Walmart sells beet sugar in their 25-pound bag. So if you're getting your sugar from Walmart, do not try to make candy.
Unless it says cane sugar.
Costco sells cane sugar, Walmart sells beet sugar.
Raw sugar is also not the best either.
Say it again.
Raw sugar and raw sugar.
Raw sugar bad. Yeah, don't use any kind of sugar that is. It's got to be white, nasty, refined sugar. Anything else is if it's caramelized, then the bees actually can't use all of that product because the caramelization is a burning. With molasses, it's burnt. So the sugar cakes that you see up here on the upper right, basically you're just taking sugar in a container, you're mixing in a little bit of water, and then just playing patty cake and then letting them either dry, or you can put them in the oven at a low temperature, let them dry there. And they're not completely solid, but they're fairly solid. You can put them on a screen board. You can just put them right on top of the frames. I do a lot of my feeding above the inner cover. But when it gets to be cold out, the inner cover goes above and I put a shim and then the feed goes on it. The screen that you see there does help stuff just go oozing, like the fondant will ooze down between the frames and it becomes a real pain to get out as you come into spring. trying to get the fondant out so I can pull a frame to do my inspection. Well, now I'm in there for 30 minutes trying to get the fondant out so I can clean it up. Well, if it's cool, you've now chilled your brood, and that's bad. So keeping it cleaner is better. So using the screen can help clean that up. The mountain cap method, George and I have had this conversation a few times. You put down a bunch of newspaper, and then you just pour the granulated sugar right on top of the newspaper, and the bees will do wonderful things with it. Well, the wonderful thing I've noticed they've done, and George had noticed that they've done, is they chew the newspaper from the bottom, and the sugar just falls to the bottom of the hive. And you end up with, I put 10 pounds on, and I found 5 pounds, like, below the screen bottom board or on the bottom board. And
With insulation, it's fine.
yeah, and you got all this chewed up newspaper down there too. So I don't find it be all that effective. The fondant, pain in the butt. But the method that actually George Watman told me about was you take your block of fondant, you put it on the edge of the table, you get your cake knife or your serrated blade, and you start the cut. And as you're cutting, you're kind of pulling the fondant off. And you just keep doing that, and then just let it flop into a box that's down below it. That seemed to work really, really well. The first couple of times I tried it, by the time I was done, I couldn't feel my fingers. I got a real workout, a real burn. You're trying to cut this stuff, and it's healing as you're cutting it. By the time you get to the bottom of the cut, the top is now healed back then. So as you're cutting it, you have to pull it away. So that's the trick to the fondant. Okay, when you're making your sugar water, if you use 1-to-1, you're stimulating. This is from a discussion with, I can't remember the guy's name. George and I were at EAS talking to him. Thousands of hives up in upstate New York, they move back and forth. If you feed, his statement was, you feed 1-to-1, you're inducing brood. They will start brooding up. If you feed them 2-to-1, they'll start storing. So that's why you always hear about feeding 1-to-1 in the spring and 2-to-1 in the fall, because you're wanting to brood up in the spring and you're wanting to have them store that sugar water in the fall. So you can use a little bit of vinegar, like a tablespoon per gallon, and that will help keep it from fermenting. More importantly, keep it from molding and mildewing, because that's a thing. Okay, but you don't want it. They won't take fermented sugar water, and the mold and they'll deal with it, but they're not as happy. And I did that accidentally as an experiment. I had one that had a bunch of mold in it, two plastic containers. One had mold in it, the other one didn't, and they emptied this one twice without the mold, and before they even started to touch that one, and you could just tell they were not interested in the molding one. Yeah.
I put a little bleach in sometimes.
Bleach is not a bad thing to do either. If you have city water, you have bleach in your water. I'm on a well, I got no bleach in my water, so adding a little bit of bleach can make a difference. It doesn't have to be a lot, but I think Keith told a story. He had put a bunch, inadvertently, he was cleaning out his one piece of equipment, and he had like a cup of bleach in there that he threw in there. And he went back in, and the bees were going at it. It didn't affect him at all.
Yeah, I mean, you have water, throw a little bit of bleach in your sugar syrup.
Yeah.
What's a
Just
little
put it
bit?
up, just put it up in so it turns color. It'll go colorless.
You said 5 cc's in a gallon.
Something like that. 5 cc's in a gallon. A little lid cap full of bleach in there. It's not going to hurt at all. I use bleach in my. They go to pools. What's in pools? Chlorine. Yeah. So, they're drinking bleach water. They kind of like it.
And if they're sucking it down, it's less of an issue, I suppose. But if you're going to store it or they're not eating fast, that's when you need to be a little more concerned about.
You need to be observant of what's going on. Yeah, why are they not taking from this container, but they are from the container? Open it up and inspect it, smell it.
If your feeder's not empty in 2 days, here's something.
Yeah.
Something's.
Something,
Easy.
either they're full or there's a problem with that syrup. Yeah. Okay, you can also use like honeybee healthy or other essential oils as a feeding stimulant. Someone gave me some and I poured some in, it smelled nice. I don't know if bees liked it or not, I'll find out next time I check. You can do open feeding. Over on the far right-hand side, that's open feeding. I don't do open feeding, but what I do is I set stuff out for them to clean up. Like when I do my, I generally will do 50 or 100 pounds of syrup at a time. So I put 50 pounds of sugar in, and then 3 gallons of water. 3 gallons of water weighs 24 pounds. 24 pounds of water and 50 pounds of honey is 2 to 1. Okay. And then a little bit of a cup of vinegar. Yes.
So yesterday I noticed that everything was really low in my hive. So I made my ratio 1 to 1 because I don't know what I'm doing. And right now it's sitting on my counter because it was hot and I was letting it cool and I was going to put it in. If I should be doing 2 to 1 because I wanted to make a little bit more, can I reheat that, add more of the sugar, let that cool, and then use it so it's not wasted?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to boil your sugar syrup, because when you start boiling it, you're starting to convert some of those sugars and you start to caramelize it, and bees can't use that caramelized portion. So it makes more sense for the way that I do it, is I've got my big burner outside, I've got my 80 quart, because everybody has an 80 quart. You know, I dump the water in first, get it hot, get it boiling, turn off the burner, dump the sugar in, then I use my drill with a little agitator on it, spin it around, you know, and that seems to, and then I pour my vinegar in. And that seems to work really, really well. I don't have the flame on once I'm pouring the sugar in. Water's hot, it will go into supersaturated solution. You can do 1 to 1 with cold water. You can't do 2 to 1 with cold water. It's got to be hot water.
I talked about alternative, the honeybee help. I have some honey from, I don't know when or where, and I'm never gonna eat it.
Eat it, right.
Can I give it, is it too late to give it to them now? I mean.
So there was an article that I read years ago that said the bees do better with sugar water over winter than they do with honey. And the reason is there's more particulate in the honey that makes them poop. Okay, and since they don't poop in the hive, if we have a cold winter, you're gonna start running into issues. And it's a cold 20-degree day, but it's sunny and the bees fly out, and you go out about 10, 15 feet from the hive, and you start to see that, you know, they've augured in. So, you know, they're flying out to go poop, and I love that, feels so good, and then realize, oh, it's really cold. Oh, it's really cold, and they freeze. I maybe that's just me talking, but I'd certainly feed them the honey in the spring.
Okay, so, and that will stimulate in the same way that a 1-to-1 sugar would?
I don't know if it would do the same, but they'll eat it, and you're not, you know, which means you're not wasting it.
Right.
That's, in my mind, that's more the important part, is the wastefulness.
I was thinking that, you know, that it was too late, but maybe earlier in the fall, what they would do is they would just take that and store it.
Yeah.
But so you think I'm past the point at which they're gonna store it, they need to consume instead?
It depends on what the weather does over the next few days.
Okay.
I mean, if it's supposed to be kind of warm over the next couple of days, so you could just lay it out. They'll clean it up. They'll clean it up. That's for sure. What they'll do with it, I don't know. Okay. By the way, doing a gallon at a time or 10 pounds at a time if you got 2 hives, that's perfectly fine. For those of you who have a significant other that says, why is there sugars all over the floor and the counters? And so generally this is sent to the guys in the room because, you know, ladies would never do this. Clean up. When you spill it, clean it. Make the mess. All right. So, you know, we talked about how heavy should your hive be. When I first got into beekeeping 10 years ago, I kept hearing the hive should weigh 100 pounds going into winter. 100 pounds going into winter. Make sure your hives weigh 100 pounds. They'll never survive the winter. So some of that was because 10 years ago, most people were running double deeps. You know, 10 frame double deep, so 20 deep frames. And if you didn't have 100 pounds of honey in there, you know, you might not make it. And also there, because they were deep and there were 2 of them, you had a lot of bees. You had a lot of bees to feed. Now I'm hearing more of 60 to 70 pounds of hive weight. If you're running a single, you can get away with a lot less. So you know, how heavy should it be? My guesstimate is 30 to 40 pounds of honey, which means, you know, how much does your equipment weigh? Is it 20 pounds? Is it 25 pounds? Is it, you know, you run double mediums for winter? Double or triple? Yeah, double or triple mediums, which is basically a double deep. So you depending on the size of your hive, you need to have some heft to it. Okay, so that's one thing that's important. It needs to have some weight. If you reach down one finger and pick up the back of your hive, yeah, you're in trouble. You're not in trouble. Your bees are in trouble. So, you know, can you get them? Can you get them to weight right now? Maybe. I had a hive a couple of years ago, single medium. You know, the cluster size was tiny. It's not going to survive. George actually came over and we looked at this thing and we said, okay, let's just dump lots of feed on top of it. You know, put some insulation on it. It's the hive that gave me that next year, gave me 125 pounds of honey. And there's no way it should have survived, but it did. You know, and I've seen big, massive hives, lots of bees that didn't make it because there was too much. So there can be too little and there can be too much. You get so many bees going through all of that food and they starve because they went through all their food come January, which is also really important. You have to go out and check your hives. I think it's probably monthly during the winter. Go out and just heft them. And that'll give you a feel for, oh yeah, I need to start planning on feeding this hive. Because I can see that weight, or I put the fishing scale on it and go, oh yeah, they've eaten 15 pounds in the past month. What did we learn last time from the chestnut?
Well, a double 5-frame nuke consumed 15 pounds of honey through last year's winter. Now they're 5/5 winter, but all winter long, the 5/5 configuration consumed on average of 15 pounds. And
It's 5 pounds a month, or
no, you know, we talked about this like in November and December and January, it's only like a pound or 2 because they don't have brood. And then once brood starts in January and February, then it triples, you know. And so, but basically from November 1st through the middle of March, those 5/5 nukes consumed only 15 pounds. And it was very tight. So we overwintered 13 5/5 nukes out there, and the range was basically 13 to 17 pounds. Now, granted, they were all managed the same way. They were all thick insulation at the top, no top ventilation, solid bottom board. You know, they all had the same genetics because basically CCBA genetics. So it's not surprising that the variability of honey consumption for those hives was very narrow, but pretty much only 13 to 17 pounds. Now that may not apply to your situation if you're running a double deep, if you're running 10 frames, if you're, but 5/5 nukes, 15 pounds of food consumption in the winter.
So
That's how we get
what you
away.
do.
That's how we get away with knowing that. That's how Ed and I are getting away with overwintering smaller colonies and smaller boxes, because we know we laugh at people that feed their hives up to 100 pounds, honestly, because we know it's necessary. We're kind of careful how we're saying that, but we have the data and the evidence to show that you don't need to get to 100 pounds to survive the winter.
Oh, and the fondant is the box in the middle. I think we're gonna do, was it $55?
I'm not sure.
A box.
Sugar, the cost of the fondant has gone up this year.
Yeah.
Go figure. So,
And we're doing 90/10 fondant.
you're gonna see an email about the fondant program that we do. We always buy fondant. The email is gonna go out and tell you that you need to pre-order it. So you're gonna need to pre-order it so we know how much to get. And the other ask of that email is going to be, I need somebody who can move 4,000 pounds of fondant. I can't move 4,000 pounds of fondant. My truck can't do it. But there's always somebody in the club who has a truck and a trailer who helps us out. Say, yeah, I can drive out to Leola, pick up 4,000 pounds and bring it to wherever we need to get it. And that ask is gonna go out. And again, if I don't have anybody to move 4,000 pounds of fondant, we don't do it. But that's never been the case. Someone's always stepped up and said, yeah, I'll move 4,000 pounds of fondant.
Or we send 4 people with pickup trucks and do 1,000 pounds each.
I don't wanna do that.
Yeah, that's much more painful.
I asked George, and I want to see if I get the same answer from you. But before I ask that, I have one thing to say. You said about boiling the sugar water. You said that the bees didn't like it. It's actually harmful. It creates HMF.
Yeah.
And Robin Underwood talks about this a lot, saying you will kill your bees. My question is I'm getting ready to go up to Cape Cod. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. I've been feeding them. It's going to be great. Camping too. I've been feeding for the last 2 weeks sugar water 2-to-1. And I said to George, if I go on vacation, what do I do? Because I'm not going to be able to keep putting it in. Should I put some like candy on top? I'm not going to tell you what George says. What should I do before I go away?
How long are you gonna be away?
From Sunday to Sunday.
Okay, and looking at the weather forecast for
Rain.
next week,
Right.
it's not going to be that cold. I would dump as much liquid on there as I possibly could. And then when you get back, you pull it off and reassess.
I'm going to have to do more containers. I just have little, cottage cheese containers.
Right.
But I've got I've got about 2 on each of the hives.
You can, if they're 8 frames, you can get at least 3, maybe 4 cottage cheese containers or sour cream containers on each one.
Will they not? The easiest thing is I've already got the candy. I'm trying to pack. I've already got the candy made. Will they take it?
Yeah.
Okay.
They may take a little bit of it, but probably not.
But something on top is better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What did George say?
George said I didn't need to do anything. He said you've been feeding. He said they should be good. And I'm like, I don't really believe that.
Solid feed, like, don't they consume that directly?
Yeah, they don't store fondant.
Store
They're
that,
not gonna
so-
store fondant.
I'm not doing fondant.
Well, whatever, like
Okay.
a sugar brick or
The
whatever.
sugar brick,
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like there's no point in doing that because they're like, that is for them to consume in real time over the winter. Like now, they're probably not gonna take it.
Right. So,
Yeah.
So either nothing or throw as much.
Or make more
Sugar
sugar
water.
water. Okay.
Yeah, put some extra in there.
That'll be fine. For a week.
I have a comment. When I make a candy boy like that, I flip it down. I don't
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. The way that this one is built is there's a screen underneath. And it's 1/4 inch. So the bees can go right through it. So I've never done that either. I always do it, and then let it harden and flip it over. The problem I've seen with that though is when we're using the beet sugar, didn't properly set up. It's like I need to do an inspection and you pull this candy board off and all you have in your hand is the frame and all the candy is on top of the
A
hive.
mess.
I threw the candy board off.
It took me forever to figure it out that Walmart's using beet sugar.
Curious because you guys are saying about not boiling it, but I've seen a bunch of recipes where you're supposed to boil it. to make it into candy board.
Yeah.
And they have to get it to the soft ball
Well,
stage, which is boiling.
you do have to get it to. when you make-
236 degrees to form up candy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's boiling now.
Yeah.
That's boiling.
Yeah, no, it's boiling. So
But is it different with the solid versus the
The
liquid?
solid versus liquid, I think, is different. They seem to be okay with candy board, but it is the
HMF.
HMF, which is.
Don't actually say the word that it stands for. It's like hydrochloro, some blah, blah, blah.
that'll be a Jeopardy
Huh?
question at the holiday party.
Thank you, that's it.
But you add sugar in that way, when you're making that candy board.
Yes,
than
yes.
When you're making sugar water.
Yeah, there's a lot less water in making candy board.
I don't know.
We're gonna let-
That's true.
If there's anything.
All right. So
Really brief before I get chucked because we're almost done. And I was supposed to do overwintering. I'm gonna make it in 3 minutes. And it's audience participation. Ready? So we're talking about all this basically to have hives alive in March, right? That's what we want. We want hives alive in March. But we know that 30% on average of our hives are going to die this winter, right? Unfortunately. Hopefully not yours, but that's the reality, and that's kind of where we do. We have beekeepers in this club that have historically about a 10% loss, right? Which is terrific. And then we have beekeepers in this club that have 100% loss every year and buying bees every year. So somewhere in between there is where most of us are going to fall. If someone says they lose no hives every year, there's one.
I have not lost a hive in 5 years.
Not lost a hive in 5. Why isn't Carissa talking today?
Yeah, Carissa.
That is the question. Anything that you disagree with or want to comment on since you have no winter loss? No air ventilation? Keep speaking.
Since day one, I've just sealed them up with no top ventilation, no nothing. Make sure my mite counts are low at the end of August, going into winter. Make sure there's plenty of food on the hive. The bees just need to be healthy.
Top insulation.
Top insulation, side insulation.
You don't have beetles out in Reading.
I don't be allowed reading, but I have them in Philly.
Yeah.
Do you overwinter in double deeps?
No, like sometimes single. It just depends. I have like 10, 12 hives, so I just do
Single, and a medium.
and a medium super. Yeah.
They're not big.
Not big. No.
Not big. 100%.
100%.
Kind of what I told you to do. Ish.
Take credit for your success.
5 years. I've been president 5 years. Nothing up there, you know. I don't know.
there's the correlation.
There's a correlation. No causation. Yes.
Question about the entrance. So I have a screen bottom board. I just have the little plastic cover underneath. Full size entrance, and then I have a stainless mouse guard on that. Any reason to tighten that up?
Yeah.
Make it smaller?
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that look like?
You could just put
Just block off of
off 2/3 of it.
Okay.
They don't need the mouse guard covers it. The mice aren't going to get in, but they don't need all those holes at the bottom of the hive for the winter. You can cover up 2/3 of that, honestly.
I use tape.
Yeah, tape works. A piece of insulation on, and you just cover it up. Less is more, honestly. So, where was I going? It's not the end yet. So, March, 30% of hives die. Hopefully not yours. The 3 reasons why your hive will die between now and March. And what does that look like inside the hive? What's reason number 1? Somebody give me that. And the quicker you give it to me, the quicker I get off.
Beetles.
Mites.
Beetles.
So health of the hive, right? So
Right.
we're going to talk about health. Your hive was not healthy going into the winter because the virus levels were too high. More than likely, your mites weren't controlled. Don't control the mites. You have viruses. Your hive dies. When you go into a hive that dies from virus or mites, what does that look like? Lots of food, not many dead bees. You don't know because you have all your hives. You basically come to an empty hive. So you basically have food left over. You don't have many bees left over. It's a quiet, dead hive, but you don't have a lot of bees in that hive. I don't know where they go. If they
See, I
fly.
do. I have a ton of bees. I'll find the dead bees. I think it's beetles in my case.
So that's a different story.
Yeah.
So and when does a hive die that's affected by viruses? When does that hive usually die?
Spring.
In the fall or December, early. As soon as it gets cold and cold for a stretch, those unhealthy bees just don't make it and they dwindle and they die. And usually by January 1st or the middle of January, that cluster is gone. The hive is empty, and you're like, my bees absconded. You know, your bees died because there was virus in your hive, which more than likely was because of your failure to control the mites, or the bees' failure to control the mites, whichever way you want to see it, right? There was not mite control, viruses, hive dies. Okay, we have two more reasons. What's this? Food.
Beetles.
So they run. I'm not going to do beetles because I'm not sure what beetles are. So food. So your hive dies because there's not enough food in the hive because you're like me and you're lazy and you don't feed and your hive's too light going into winter and they starve. Now, what does a starved colony look like?
Lots of bee butts sticking out of bees.
Yeah, bees in the comb, a pile of bees on the bottom board, lots of bees, light hive, right? So you see all these bees. It's kind of sad because you see bees with their heads in the comb. You see no honey, a hive that's light, a big pile of bees on the bottom. That hive died because of starvation. And when does that usually happen? Spring. Right. So it can happen anytime if your hives are really light, but it usually happens when they start to make brood, February, March. When the demand goes up because of brood and a higher temperature, they run out of food and they starve. That's when you want to be putting fondant on your hive, right? That's the role of fondant, you know, to sort of carry them over. What's the third reason why your hive won't make it through the winter?
Lack of winter bees.
Population? Yeah,
No pollen in the fall.
I could see that. You know, that wasn't what I was thinking, but we'll take it. Like your winter cluster was too small, right? You just didn't make bees in the winter for one reason or another, and you didn't size it. You didn't size your hive appropriately, and there wasn't enough bees to generate the heat, and they dwindle and they die, right? You can overwinter pretty small clusters and pretty small hives, but right, if you don't have enough bee mass, your bees aren't going to make it through the winter. For those of you who have that situation for whatever reason, my advice would be to downsize your hive to give it the best chance of making, because I'm shocked at how small clusters can make it through the winter in small hives. Any other thoughts? One more reason. Yes. Potentially, yes. That's a problem, right? If you have too much moisture and it drains down on them and they freeze basically because you have no insulation on the top. I'm going to give you the answer because I'm playing read my mind right now. Queen issue. Okay. So for some reason in the fall, you had a queen problem, right? And that queen that's in that cluster going through the winter is not a functional, healthy queen. It doesn't mate properly because it was created too late, has something with the queen. And then when that queen needs to start laying again in January, she just can't. And then your cluster basically just dwindles and dies in February or March because there's no new bees. That is a condition that happens that is really out of your control. I've had it happen to me because they decide to supersede. Something happens to the queen. There are queens that die in the winter. If you run hundreds of hives for many years, I'm sure at some point your queen dies in the winter. And then you end up basically unable to start that cycle in February, and they have no way to make a new queen, right? The bees here can't make a new queen until April, and they basically dwindle and they die. So if your hive dies this winter, you've got to really honestly think to yourself, why? Do I want to keep beekeeping? And if I want to keep beekeeping, what do I think happened here? Because they did not abscond. They didn't leave. You know, they didn't just disappear. It was either disease, you know, a health and disease, a starvation, or a queen issue, which is unlikely, right? And I don't know much about beetle issues. Like beetle pressure is a real problem.
They keep eating mother eggs. I mean, they
beetle
try to
pressure is
produce-
a real problem out there. And surely hives do interesting things when they're really infested with beetles, and which probably affects their ability. You know, if you have a hive that's highly infested with beetles, it's probably not making much brood right now. Your winter bee population's down. It's probably not foraging because all these bees are fighting beetles, and then you end up basically, you know, going into winter in a colony that's sort of marginally sort of highly stressed, and it just doesn't make it. So beetles could be a variety of different factors to why the colony doesn't make it.
Can I ask you something about the fondant? Does the spring
disappear?
Does the spring feeding have to be fondant versus liquid or?
No, I mean some people will.
Well, the January, February.
Some people will feed on really warm days and add a little bit of liquid to the top of the hives. You just can't. You know, you have to pick a warm day. It has to be concentrated. But there are some people that will do that through the winter. But you got to be careful because if it's cold, then like Mark said, it's just you're not gonna take it.
But there's not something different in fondant that's different in sugar, water, or candy, right?
No, it's sugar.
It's just sugar.
It's just sugar. But once the liquid gets cold, they won't take it. While the fondant you put right on top of the hive, and you can keep warm and they'll eat it. But Warren Graham, who some of you know, but he's a master beekeeper. He would in February have these little yogurt containers that he would, would fill with liquid and put it right on top of the cluster. And he would feed them like half a cup or a cup of liquid a day that he would put right on the cluster in February. And he did fine. And he never used fondant. And that was the way he kind of carried them over. They were light. So if you're running an out yard, that's not realistic. But if you're running a home yard and you want to put a little liquid right over your cluster in the winter, that's in February, you can do that too. You don't need fondant. You can do it other ways. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck really quick because he's on the agenda to talk a little bit about the Explorer post. And then afterwards, I think we're going to wander out to the hive. So if anybody has a suitor, we're going to see what we can do. I don't know what the weather looks like, but we'll look at some bees. If anybody wants to join us. Yeah, all good. Thanks, Chuck.
So anybody that's involved in any organization nowadays knows that the key to an organization's success is youth. It's been a challenge for the club. So we're starting a Beekeepers Explorer post. It's 8335. We owe that to George because he tells us if you look at it creatively, you can get bees out of that. And we believe that. So it's going to be run by myself and Dana Ireland with generous help from Mark and George, who were instrumental in getting things started. I'd like to give a little bit of a plug to Park right now. We have a very young district executive. She's 22 years old. She looks like she's about 12. Boy Scouts of America, a very creative genius of marketing, opened up the Boy Scouts of America groups. And I think there may be more girls in Boy Scouts now than there are boys. Ryan is an Eagle Scout. She's got tremendous leadership qualities. And we've been involved in her with a few projects, and she's been nothing but extremely supportive of our efforts for Park here. When I think George and Mark approached her to come here, she gave us everything we asked for. For the beekeeping club, we've had a lot of requests. We've had a lot of things to get done. She not only provided everything, we had an open house last month that she actually showed up to, so she's been very supportive. In addition to the beekeeping club, Explorer Post, the club itself, we have a side project that has nothing to do with this project. I wanted to mention it because Park's been very supportive. We have a program at the Veterans Administration Medical Center in Coatesville called Therapeutic Beekeeping for Veterans. And if you've ever worked with the federal government, that's an extremely challenging thing to get started on. Ryan has opened doors to Park for us to share in that project. They've given us space. There's an Eagle Scout project. Put some hives out here. We have 2 8-frame deeps that the club is currently monitoring. The town wanted us to put an enclosed fence around it. Ryan was very supportive of that. I just want to make sure everyone knows how supportive Park's been to all of our efforts. So that having been said, we're having an open house this coming Thursday, October 16th at 6:30. We surveyed the membership for volunteers. Got a very generous input of volunteers. I have some flyers, some paper flyers. If you want electronic copies, I could give you them as well. But we could always use more volunteers. The open house is probably going to consist of like an extraction from some dry hives. I think George may be bringing an observation hive. Not sure. Mark is going to be bringing some honey for a honey tasting. We'll have bee equipment. We'll have educational bee frames. If weather permits, we'll get out to the apiary and get a little live hive time. So if you're interested in supporting us and coming, we'd love to have you. I've got flyers. You want an electronic copy? I can give you an electronic copy. Have I missed anything?
If you know any kids, that's what we've.
Yeah, we're in recruiting mode right now. You can't do this without kids. So if you're tied in any school district or any schools or neighbors, and you know young people, please take a flyer. I'll get you a copy, electronic if you want, and we can.
We just want to make sure that people know that kids that may connect with it, right? You know, so that
we're recruiting right now. We're in a heavy recruiting. Mark, did I miss anything?
No, and it's the 14 to through 20 years old is how old you can be for this program. 14-year-olds for sure. I thought it was like if they had finished 8th grade, they could be 13.
Yeah.
But yeah, that age.
Mind sharing how old you are? Or no, rather not.
Well, I've got a birthday coming up. I'm going to be 80 years old, and I just want to say that one of the things that got me started on this was I got an email from the VA. They have a program. It's called Heroes to Hives. And it's a 9-month program. It's not very difficult, it's very comprehensive. And I completed that program. In the process of that, I thought, wouldn't it be a great thing if this Heroes of the Hives program were offered at the VA? When I got out of the Marine Corps in 1967, I was a high school dropout. I had no education. I didn't even have a driver's license. I missed 2 jobs because of that. I went down to take the test for the Cleveland Fire Department. They wouldn't let me take the test because it wasn't a high school graduate. And I went down to the phone company to get a job. They wanted to hire me for construction. They wouldn't hire me because they didn't have a driver's license. So I had no network. I had no education. I had no trade, no profession, nothing. I would have loved to have had a program like Heroes to Hives. So the program we're doing here at the club for our veterans, helping our young people, and the club in general is wonderful. So
I mean,
we really need your support.
Chuck's always talking about helping somebody else, but I just want to take him going on 80, and he started the VA program.
Yeah.
And he's integral in the Explorer Post program. He shows up to the nuke yard on Wednesdays to put feed in the apprentice nuke yard at 80 years old. You know what I mean? And that's all we ask, you know, and I always like want to stand closer to him because his energy and his optimism, I was like, give me some of this, you know, tell me, I hope I'm at 80 doing the same thing. But
Oh, and how long have you been keeping these?
About a year.
so Chuck can do it. We all can do it.
One of my life's heroes was Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi had a great quote. He said, "Live life like you're gonna die tomorrow. Learn like you're gonna live forever." And I'm learning like I'm gonna live forever because I know I'm gonna see 100. So I got another 20 years.
So we had the drone congregation event at my house, and Chuck shows up, and he's on my team, and we're hiking like a mile or 2 miles trying to find whole balloons, and about half a mile into the trip, he says, "My pacemaker's going off." I was like, "No, sit down." He said, "No, I'm okay." I'm like, maybe we should like stop this event. You know, he's like, "Nah, no worries."
Okay, for a year now, it's working fine.
He said it's doing what it's doing. So anyway, so the moral of the story is there's room for people to show up and get involved, and if you show up and get involved, you will do something positive probably. So that's all I wanted to highlight.
Thank you.
We're thankful for everyone who helps out.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
And we have one last.
Board elections, yes. I am not the board chairman. I am not on the board, but we do, in November meeting, we do have our board election. So we will be electing 2 open positions. The people that are up for re-election are Janet and Patrick. Janet will not seek another term. Patrick will. We do take nominations for directors and any 5 primary members. Right to the secretary. Email is fine. So if you want to run for the board, let Carissa know. There's a place to get the nomination form, and we do need somebody, at least one other person, if not more, to put their name forward to be on the board of directors. The board of directors meets 4 times a year. It's not a huge commitment, but it's an important piece of having a nonprofit organization. We have to have a board, and our board has to have 7 people on it, so we need 2 people to serve on the board.
The board is focused on strategic, not operational. The officers and the committee leads do the operational day-to-day management of the club, but the board sets the strategic vision
and approves the budget,
strategic direction, and yes, the fiscal.
So if the club runs fine, the commitment is relatively small, honestly, to the board, but it's important, right? Because we can't have it without. So if anyone's interested, please email Carissa. We need 2 people to run for the board of directors. And November is a DIY month. So remember last year we had a bunch of people come up and show what they were doing, a craft or whatever. So Donna's going to do DIY in November too. Hopefully get people out for the board elections. So if there's something that you do that's somewhat bee related and you want to show it off and share what you're doing, look out for the ask for Donna, because otherwise you're going to hear me. And I am doing again, you guys saw some of you don't open your CCBA email, and I understand why, but I am doing a how to make wood paste event at my house on Thursday, October 23rd, where we're going to show how to take wax cappings and turn them into a wood paste product. And you get to take home a tin of wood paste too. It's $10, just covering the cost of the tin and the wood paste. So everyone's welcome. I think I have 8 people sign up so far. A few more we can handle. So if you're interested in that, come and hang out with us.
Are we bringing our own wax?
No, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. You bring nothing except for yourself. If you want to bring, if you have wax and you want to use your wax in your paste, we can do that. We're going to make small batches and show you how, but it's not necessary. So if the $10 basically is covering the materials to send you home with a tin of wax, basically.
You could bring food. Just saying.
It's pretty cool, you know. I mean, we're gonna have fun. You know, it'll be a small group. We'll burn the barn down and make some all fun. Anyway, I thank you all for coming, and please come to the November meeting because we're gonna have the election. And for those of you who want to, I assume it's nice enough to open some hives. We'll open some hives in 5 or 10 minutes, and that's all I got. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.